Happy Tuesday, my friends, and welcome back into another edition of Prime Sports World. I'm your coach, your host, David On Point Huffin. Right there is my co-host, Mr. TJ Hopkins. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast, as this is team number 16, as we are now halfway through previewing every single team in the National Football League before the season starts. So hopefully you're on the ride with us. Thank you, my Aunt Judy, for liking the podcast. We appreciate your constant support. But yes, please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. On today's show, we're going to be talking about the Buffalo Bills, team that lost a lot of talent this offseason. Some notable names. We're going to talk about it all here on today's episode of The Prime. You don't want to miss any of this content. So come on, ride with us. We're going to check out the Buffalo Bills. TJ, happy Tuesday, my friend. How are you?
Awesome. I saw Deadpool and Wolverine. It was fucking amazing.
That's what's up. So the money that you were waiting for finally cleared as well, I'm assuming?
Yes.
And you got to see it with your niece. Did your niece enjoy the movie as well?
Yes, she did.
I'm glad to hear that, man. I'm glad to hear that. So I had my orientation, tech orientation over there at Indiana Tech today, and they told me that there was going to be like a drug test as part of the orientation. I was like, all right, cool. I don't really do drugs or nothing, so I was not worried about it. But so I was like, woke up and I didn't pee at all. Like I was just like, I'm just going to hold this in until I get to the drug test, right? They didn't even do a urine test. It was like a mouth swab test. I'm like, I held this piss in all fucking day. Like, I was so mad. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you could warn a guy. Like, and then the swab test, I don't know if you've ever done it before, but it's terrible. You gotta like hold this like thing in your mouth like for like 10 minutes, scraping the side of your gums and shit. It's terrible, dude. I would have.
Yeah,
and then
because you got people out there that they fake urine samples, so they're trying their hardest to
I didn't even really think about that as even a remote possibility. Like I was like, man, like but I held in this piss all day. Like I really had to go like all day. I'm like, I'm just gonna hold it. Oh, but anyways, but the orientation was really cool. Should be getting my work email here sometime this week. So I'm really excited to get that started. But yeah, let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. A lot of turnover when it comes to this season, but one mainstay when it comes to Buffalo, Josh Allen. Is Josh Allen still an MVP candidate with this roster construction? We'll talk about the wide receivers. I mean, you can't really talk about wide receivers without talking about Josh Allen. But is he still an MVP candidate? Is he still somebody who's going to be a top 5 prediction guy when people talk about the MVP? Is Josh Allen still that guy? Is he still going to be an MVP candidate?
Yeah. Josh Allen has reached the realm of, hey, as long as I got him, I got a chance. I ain't say I was going to win. I said I got a chance. All right? And truth be told, that's kind of what you want in your franchise quarterback. Like, let's be fair. Only one guy can win the whole you did, right? There can only be one winner. But realistically, there are, what would you say, maybe 5 teams with legit guys like that, where they can say, hey, as long as I got my guy, I got the chance.
Yeah, for sure.
He's one of the 5. You can say what you want.
The run that Josh Allen went on last season towards the back end of the season, where they were able to win their own division, I mean, was nothing short of spectacular. I mean, he did throw a lot more picks last season than more picks actually last season than he's thrown at any point in his career. But I mean, Josh Allen, sometimes like Buffalo is so heavily reliant on Josh Allen that he feels like he has to force stuff. Yeah. And you see that a lot with, especially with a guy who has the arm. Like, he gets like Jay Cutler syndrome, like where he's just got like this missile for throwing arm. He's like, I can get it there. I'm getting it there. And then every once in a while, I mean, most of the time, yeah, he does get it there. But there are those times where it don't get there. It doesn't get there.
And that's probably a super spot on comparison. I don't know if you want to be necessarily compared to Jay Cutler, but in terms of strictly speaking, in terms of talent, just talent, like throwing the balls, throwing the ball, making the throws.
Jay Cutler is in the conversation for like the strongest arm in the history of the league.
like I say it all the time. Like at one point in time, the NFC North had three of the best arm talents we've ever seen at quarterback, and only one of them got talked about because one of them was winning. Josh Allen, on the other hand, has he's turned himself from like this project to franchise QB. Like when the rumblings about him started, this guy out of Wyoming, they're like, who the hell is this guy out of Wyoming? And why are you looking at Wyoming for a quarterback? Like it was at one point, it was a joke. Like at one point, he was the worst graded quarterback in that draft class. That draft class was spearheaded by no other than Baker Mayfield. And now, like the last two guys in that draft class are two of the best, Lamar and Josh Allen. Right?
I mean, we just had John Elway come out today or yesterday saying not drafting Josh Allen was the worst decision he ever made as a GM. And John Elway's made some bad decisions as a GM.
Decisions. Like Josh Allen. Right, so like,
but I mean, it's also. I mean, on top of that, I mean, he's also like a goal line threat. He rushed 15 touchdowns last season. I mean, he 524 yards. He had 111 carries. I mean, this guy just carries this team on his back. And as long as Josh Allen stays healthy, he's going to be in the MVP conversation. Like, and as long as Buffalo has Josh Allen, we're going to talk about the wide receivers here in just a moment. But as long as they have Josh Allen, they have a chance to be competitive every single Sunday, no matter or Thursday or Friday or Saturday, Monday nights, whatever day the game is going to be on.
Yeah, and he's also like you're hoping. This is what you're hoping, and segueing into the next topic. This is what you're hoping with Josh Allen. So like, when you first got Josh Allen, like you said, like he was a project. You saw, you saw it. It was there in flashes, and they're like, we need to get somebody that can bring that out of him to elevate him to the next level. And they're like, oh, we're gonna get Stephon Diggs, and Stephon Diggs was able to play a very crucial role in taking him to that next level. And he had Stephon Diggs for a handful of years. It sucks they came up short in the fashion that they did. They lost to the faster gun, and there's never a problem in losing to a faster gun.
Every team that they've lost to in the playoffs has gone on to either appear in the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl.
I think losing to the Bengals is more so bad than losing to the Chiefs. Course.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that
because you can beat the Bengals.
Okay, I guess the Bengals. Yeah, they didn't go to the Super Bowl that season. Now that I think about it, but I mean that was a Buffalo team that was kind of coming over the DeMar Hamlin stuff. I think there was still some like you hate to make excuses, but I think there was still some of that hung over that team. And Josh Allen doesn't play defense; he doesn't defend against the run, and they basically got run out of the building in that game against in the snow in Buffalo. And I also think that things could have been a lot different that season because if that game had completed the game again, like I hate to even talk about this, right? But if the Buffalo Bills had won that game, they would have been the 1 seed. People don't talk about that very often in like any of the circles, but like if Buffalo had beaten Cincinnati in that game that DeMar Hamlin basically died on the field, they would have been the number 1 seed in the AFC. They would have had the first round bye. They wouldn't even have played Cincinnati. Nope. And I mean, that's just like something that people just don't talk about very often when it comes to that particular season.
And so you get Stephon Diggs. They go through what they go through. They're frustrated with each other. It's an ugly loss to the Chiefs again, right? Where it's
a game you were winning for majority of it, and then you lose in the final few minutes.
Stephon Diggs drops a pass he normally catches in the sleep. Josh Allen misreads a play. He's looking for like you said, like he's trying to force a throw in when all he had to do was take the check down, which is 2 feet in front of him, and that check down to a bigger play. Stephon Diggs ain't there no more. Like what you're hoping for with Josh Allen now is you got a Keon Coleman, you got I gotta look at the rest of the roster.
And let's swing right into that. Let's talk about wide receiver one. So wide receiver one, they lose Gabe Davis, they lose Stephon Diggs. They're in the offseason. They lost some other wide receivers that aren't really all that relevant. But now, I mean, they got Khalil Shakir, who's a speedster, who they need to take a major step forward. Keon Coleman was a second round pick. Sorry. Curtis Samuel was someone they brought in from the Washington Commanders, who's a really good slot receiver. Mac Hollins, Chase Claypool has kind of been a bust. Ever since he had that one good season in Pittsburgh, his ceiling, he's definitely regressed. MVS, they brought him from the Kansas City Chiefs. They got KJ Hamler, who hasn't been really all that good in the NFL, especially since after his injury. Andy Isabella is a player that continues to be on NFL rosters, even though he never does anything in the NFL. But I think we're talking about the main five guys. Not to mention we got Dalton Kincaid, who should have another step forward season. He may be wide receiver one. Dawson Knox. I mean, when we're talking about wide receiver one, I mean, Dalton Kincaid, even though he's a tight end, he may be their most important pass catcher out of the backfield, or just pass catcher in general. Dalton Kincaid could be that guy.
And once again, people also have to understand something. Just because you don't have a top flight receiver, don't mean your tight end can't be your number one option. A la KC, a la Baltimore. Marcus,
Dalton, as a rookie, Dalton Connect had 73 targets for 673 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kincaid, yeah, sorry, Connect. I'm doing the NFL right now. Kincaid, yeah. But yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for Sam Laporta in Detroit having the season that he had, I mean, people were talking about Dalton Connect with having a standout wide tight end rookie season. 73 catches and 673 yards for a rookie tight end. It's pretty damn good.
That's pretty damn great. So what you're hoping for right now with Josh Allen is you're hoping that he's at a point in his career where he can elevate a Keon Coleman to do stuff that rookies don't normally do, to bring out the best in a Khalil Shakir that, truth be told, he hasn't really been asked to do much more other than take the top off the defense, be that deep threat. Love to see.
Average 15.7 yards per reception. I'm not sure where that ranks in the NFL, but I imagine it's got to be somewhere in the top 15.
That has to be up there. And Curtis Samuel is probably thanking his lucky stars that, damn, I have an all-pro caliber quarterback to play with.
I mean, he spent a bunch of seasons in Carolina, and then he ended up in Washington. So yeah, he's like downside. I gotta live in Buffalo. But plus side, I get to play with Josh Allen. Like that's a trade-off. I will take that. So Khalil Shakir was 13th in terms of receptions, average yards per reception. So 13th.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's not bad.
I would like to see him use more intermediate, in an intermediate game, a few bubble screens, couple quick slants, stuff like that. Anything other than just catching the ball down the field. And you're hoping that Josh Allen can elevate those guys, and I think that that's entirely possible because that's kind of why you move on from Stephon Diggs and I think they would have for Gabe Davis because they just couldn't afford him anymore.
Yeah, I think he signed a big time contract with Jacksonville. They just straight up couldn't afford to pay that money.
And what's his name? Stephon Diggs, I guess it was just time to go. The disgruntlement just got too much it just became too much, and
it became a distraction as well. I think they both needed a change of scenery, so we'll see what they look like as on different sides. Let's talk about the last storyline here. Let's talk about Sean. I think when we talk about wide receiver one for this team, I think it will end up being Dalton Kincaid. He will be wide receiver one for this team.
Yeah, and I'm definitely looking forward to their those sets. When it's Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah,
it's gonna be nice. On the field at the same time. Make or break season for Sean McDermott? Yes. Yes.
I think there was some real conversation that could have been had. I think there was real conversation last season when people talked about this team coming up short again in the playoffs. I mean, you don't even make it to the conference finals. Even the season before, I mean, you kind of struggle against Miami, giving up that defense. You're supposed to be a defensive guru. That defense gave up 31 points against a Miami defense that had Skylar Thompson at quarterback. And I agree with you. I think if Buffalo, if they don't get over the hump, because they're not getting rid of Josh Allen, like he's the franchise quarterback, they will have to make a change elsewhere, and it'll be at the head coach.
Yeah, and they probably will hire within, because they fired what's his name? His name's escaping me.
Well, they brought in hold on. You're talking about their offensive coordinator?
Yeah.
Ken Dorsey. So they did fire Ken Dorsey in the middle of the season. I don't remember who took over. I don't. Wasn't it the guy who was the offensive coordinator for LSU when they had Joe Burrow?
Is it Joe? Is it Joe Brady? Is Joe Brady the guy? Joe Brady. Yep.
Joe Brady is their offensive. Yeah, Joe Brady. So yeah, he was the offensive coordinator for.
Yeah.
LSU.
So they probably will hire within. I can't really think of. I mean, again, the name's going to be thrown out there. Like Lincoln Riley is going to be a super hot commodity, depending on what happens with USC and the new Big Ten and this new college football format that we got. This is a make or break season for Sean McDermott. For the same reason, it's a make or break season for the other coaches some of the other coaches that we talked about. You can't keep coming up short and expecting everything to be all right.
Yeah. Eventually, you need a change of voice, a change of head coach. This is for sure a make or break season for Sean McDermott. It's not close.
Not close at all. Like you can't keep doing that.
Yep.
And
let's move in from. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Swinging into their storylines, let's talk about their draft. They actually had a lot of picks because they traded out of the first round to get an additional second round pick. They took Keon Coleman, the wide receiver out of Florida State. They took a safety out of Utah to try to replace Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, who are no longer on this team. They took a defensive lineman, Dwayne Carter. They took Ray Davis. They took Cedric Van Pran, a center out of Georgia, to try to replace Mitch Morris, who's no longer on this team. These are all fifth-round picks, so they're all kind of flyer guys. They took a linebacker. They took an edge out of Troy. They took another tackle out of UCF. They took a corner out of Penn State. And then they took a guard out of the International Pathway program, Travis Clayton. And I'm pretty sure that he's from the same rugby program that Jordan Mailata came from when he came into the National Football League out of New Zealand. Travis Clayton is a mammoth human being. Like he is he's an absolute project, but he is a super gigantic human being.
First off, I don't think people really understand the size of rugby players.
Yeah, so Travis Clayton is 6'7", 303 pounds. He ran a 4.79 in the 40-yard dash. It's the fastest any offensive lineman who's ever run the 40 at the combine in a decade.
Yeah, I don't think people understand like the sheer size of rugby players. And if you think I'm over exaggerating, I don't know, just watch the Olympics that they're playing right now. They're women rugby players are massive. Like this one rugby player I keep seeing on Instagram, I think she's like my height. She's about 5'10", maybe 5'9". She's 200 pounds of solid muscle. Like her BMI is like 20. Her BMI is like 23.9%, and that's considered overweight. There's no fat on her body. I can't find it. It just doesn't. It just doesn't exist. That lady is 200. That lady is 200 pounds of solid muscle, and will probably just a wall. So if that's what their women are like, can you imagine what this individual can do to a person when he's pulling on a play where he's coming around and a poor DB does not see him coming at whatever fast you said that 40 was
4.79.
That at 300 pounds, that is not human. That is not supposed. You are not supposed to be that big and that fast.
I think that player aside, I think what I really like about their draft is that they addressed major needs in their first 3 picks. So they needed to get a wide receiver after losing Stephon Diggs and trading him away and losing Gabe Davis. I mean, Keon Coleman is a good wide receiver, and he is going to have the opportunity to be wide receiver 1. And they got him at a kind of a discount at 33. I mean, a lot of people had him as a borderline first round pick. I know 33. I know it's like the pick after the first round, but like he ran a 4.61.
I don't. That's a first round pick, bro. Like you are, and then first round, 33rd overall.
And then they followed that straight up with Cole Bishop, the safety out of Utah, who runs a 4.5 40 to try to replace. Big time hitter. They needed safety. This addresses that need. And then they needed to get bigger in the trenches. Like they needed, Ed Oliver's the only guy that they have at the defensive tackle position that plays regularly. They just needed more depth at that position. So they bring in a Dwayne Carter, played at Duke, should have the opportunity to be a backup to Ed Oliver, or even whatever scheme they want to play. He should be a good fit for this team in round 3.
Yeah, that absolutely. Keon Coleman fell victim to the Florida State stuff, man. Like everybody got hurt and they just fell off a cliff. They get their ass kicked by Georgia. I also think it's the other receiver that Steve Smith kind of said stay away from. Keon Coleman, he's already a fan favorite. His personality is electric. He's a joy to talk to. If you ever get a chance to watch a Keon Coleman interview, do it. You will laugh your ass off. He's funny without trying to be funny. Like you ever watch somebody try to be funny and it's just like painfully awkward? He's not that. Yeah, he's not that. Keon Coleman, and we can talk about Dalton Kincaid being wide receiver 1 all we want. Keon Coleman will have something to say about that, 100%. Cole Bishop, once again, head hunter. Dude is a monster. He played for a Utah team that, quite honestly, while they were good, in my opinion, didn't get talked about nearly enough. Utah could easily been in the national championship picture these last couple of years. If you don't believe me, look at what they did to USC. They punked them.
Yeah.
Punked them.
And then Carter, he had 114 pressures at, ultra productive there at Duke. The running back is a good complement to what they already have there with James Cook. He is 5'8", 211 pounds. He's more of the bruising type running back.
Absolutely. You also
went to Kentucky.
Kentucky. All right, first off, let's give Kentucky some credit. They are no longer just a basketball school. Like that, whoever's in charge of that football program has completely turned that thing around. I love it. And then in
the fifth round, they took a center who had 1 sack. So he went to Georgia, right? And so he's big time SEC school. He allowed 1 sack in 1,300 pass blocking plays for his career while at Georgia, while starting 3 seasons at center.
Hold the hell on. Wait, run that by me one more time.
1 sack in 1,300 pass blocking plays at the center position. He's probably not going to start for them right away. I mean, because they have Connor McGovern, who will probably slide over to center, but this guy is going to play at some point. I guarantee it. Like 1 sack in the SEC
in 1,300. Bruh, like that's
yeah.
I want to meet the person who beat him.
Yeah,
like who
got that 1 sack? Who got it? And then they took a linebacker out of Washington. I'm not going to try to pronounce that last name. I can't. He dealt with significant injuries in 2021 and 2022. He played 6 years at Washington, so he's a little bit of an older player. But he was able to play every game in 2023. He also won the Guy Flaherty Most Inspirational Award, which is the program's oldest and most prestigious honor. I'm not sure how much he's actually going to contribute. But he would probably be a very good special team.
I think I remember his story because the head coach at Alabama now was the coach at Washington. Kalen DeBoer, and yeah, so like it was a big story. I think he lost his father, the player. I think somebody close to him died, and he was really going through it, and it made headlines because Kalen DeBoer is like basically did what any self-righteous person would do. It's like, hey man, F this football stuff. If you need to go be with your family, go be with your family. Like we'll be here when you get back. We're not going anywhere. Matter of fact, I'll go with you if you need me to.
Yeah.
I remember that. I gotta get all the details though.
The edge rusher out of Troy led all FBS with 16 sacks last season. He also totaled 31 and a half sacks through the start of 2021. He was super productive as part of Troy, whatever you think of Troy, but he should be able to give them some depth at the edge position behind Gregory Show and Von Miller and AJ Epinesa. I'm not sure what else really needs to be said there about him. It's the first he had more sacks than any other all draft eligible edge rushers since 2021 with 32. Like he's been more productive than anyone else that was drafted in this year's draft. They took an offensive tackle out of UCF. He played 27 games at life tackle. He's probably just a depth position there. And then Daquan Hardy, the corner out of Penn State. He had 2 return touchdowns. He's probably more of a return guy in the NFL. He did have 14.9 yards. Finished 7th in school history. He had 2 touchdowns as a punt returner. I'm not sure what his impact's really going to be in the NFL.
Depth guy at corner, like you said, mostly a return guy. That's probably what they did. We just raved about Travis Clayton. So Travis Clayton very well could. Yeah, he's gonna be fine.
I think this is a pretty solid draft. I'll go B.
All things considered, you lose wide receiver 1 and 2 in the draft, and then you get a bunch of draft capital back, and they're mostly 5th and 6th round picks. Like in a couple seconds, like you did what you could.
Yeah,
that's solid work.
From there, let's talk about roster shakeup, and we got a lot to talk about here. Curtis Samuel and Mark MVS come over as part of their free agency roster shakeup. But the big swings are here. Stephon Diggs, no longer on this team, traded to the Houston Texans. Mitch Morse, I also think, was traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars, but don't quote me on that because he may have just left in free agency, or they may have released him and then he left in free agency. Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde both got released and left. Micah Hyde's still unsigned, so there is a possibility he could return. Leonard Floyd, one of their productive edge rushers, is no longer on this team, and Dane Jackson, who was a productive corner for this team, is also gone. They also lost some other guys, but I didn't think any of them were really all that relevant to this conversation. Let's see here. Deontay Hardy, who's a wide receiver, ended up on the Ravens. Naheem Hines, who was a valuable depth running back, goes to the Cleveland Browns. Ryan Bates was their backup center to Mitch Morse. He's now a member of the Chicago Bears. Jalen Phillips is an interior defensive lineman. Puna Ford, who has had a productive career in the NFL, moves over to the Chargers. But yeah, I mean, they lost a lot of players. I mean, this is a team that has, I mean, if they could find a way to trade away Von Miller's contract and somehow get out of that money, I mean, I think that would be, and I completely forgot to put Gabe Davis on there. Obviously, Gabe Davis signed a big time money contract to go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, this is kind of what happens, right? Like when you have a successful team, sometimes your players get plucked and you just can't afford them. And Mitch Morse is left in free agency. I think they may have released him, then he left. So
that Von Miller deal is looking so awful right now. It's super unfortunate because you signed this guy thinking like, hey, he's a Super Bowl whisperer. Like every team he goes to, their Super Bowl odds just skyrocketed, and he's won what, 2 of them? And he just, something happened to him. Like he just went off the. Remember that that little month-long stretch? It was almost like Von Miller said, "What?" Like
well, I mean, he's had a variety of off the field stuff outside of the injuries because of the ACL tear. But I mean, he's had issues with baby mama drama that we're really not going to get in here because it's not really any of our business. But it just hasn't been productive. Like it's been a bad look for the Bills. It's been a bad contract. And yes, when you signed it, there was a lot of hype around it, but it looks bad in hindsight. They also brought in Nicholas Morrow, who was really good in Chicago. Was also decent in Philadelphia last season. He's probably going to be just adding depth at the linebacker position. But I mean, this is kind of what your team looks like, right? Deion Dawkins is back on a 3-year extension. He's a good football player.
That's a good deal.
Yeah.
It's again, like this is where you touched on it. Right? Roster gets expensive. Josh Allen's contract is starting to show the ugly side.
The crazy thing is Josh Allen isn't even in like the top 10 of contracts anymore.
Like he's insane.
He's only making 43. He's making $43 million. I can't even put the only back in there. He's making $43 million, but like it's not even in the top 10 of quarterback salaries anymore. Like it's because he signed that contract in 2018. No, it must have been like 2021. But like the quarterback market has just ballooned since then, and I'll be interested to see what his next one looks like because he will break the market again. Because when he signed it, he was the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, and not even 3 seasons later or 4 seasons later, it's not even in the top 10 anymore.
And but it still shows the ugly side of those massive contract extensions, right? Guys get like that extension kicks in, and all of a sudden it's like, damn. Because of that, I can't pay this guy. I can't pay that guy. This guy's got to walk. That guy's got to walk. And all of a sudden, I think we're gonna see it in Dallas too. Like multiple guys got to get paid at the same time, and these just ain't your run-of-the-mill backup dudes. Like these are key contributors that want their bread. Gabe Davis wanted his bread, bro. Like Gabe Davis was like, hey. Come playoff time, I'm the one you go to, not Diggs. You throw the ball to me the most. You throw the ball to me the most. Come playoff time, losing the guys they did, Micah Hyde, Leonard Floyd. Man, like that's tough.
Not to mention with Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, like not only do you lose their production on the field, you also lose their leadership in the locker room. And like that is an intangible that doesn't have a money value, right? Like you don't really you don't have like you can't put stats on leadership. Like but those two guys were the leaders of that defense, and now they're going to have to rely on Ed Oliver to take a leadership role. They're going to have to rely on AJ Epinesa to take a leadership role. And maybe they're not Gregory Rousseau, Taylor Rapp. Those guys are going to have to be leaders of this locker room. And I mean, those guys are difficult to replace.
Absolutely. Very, very difficult to replace. And then like the guys you brought in, like Curtis Samuel, who I said it in the opening, he's just happy to finally play with a quarterback who he knows for certain is going to be there. Like I don't have to question who's throwing me the ball on Sunday.
Yeah.
MVS goes like, bro, MVS, bro, your quarterback gauntlet is
Aaron Rodgers to Patrick Mahomes to Josh Allen. So he's had some favorable quarterback play, that's for sure. But I mean, this is what happens. I mean, you had to the Stephon Diggs thing was toxic. You had to move off of that. You couldn't afford to keep this roster intact. They think that as a whole, I think they did a pretty good job just kind of plugging some holes through free agency and through the draft. And as long as they have Josh Allen, as we kind of talked about, they'll be fine.
Oh, absolutely. You're just hoping that I hope first though, back to MVS, I hope he finds something permanent.
Yeah.
Like I just
he's kind of bounced around the league a little bit. Moving on from there, let's talk about their ceiling. Let's talk about their floor. And I don't remember which side. I think we went to the ceiling side first. So let's go to the floor first for the Buffalo Bills. And let's talk about their floor, as we're going to be a little negative on here on the show today. They do have some. They get a bunch of their more difficult matchups at home. So they get Kansas City at home, and then they get a bye right after. They get San Francisco at home, and then they get right after bye. They get the Jacksonville Jaguars at home. I mean, their most difficult game that they have to go on the road for is the Ravens and Texans back to back. Throwing the Jets in there too. That's a mini gauntlet there. They have to go to Detroit and take on the Detroit Lions. But as a whole, they have a pretty favorable schedule. So looking at their floor, what do you kind of see as their floor?
8 wins.
8 wins is the floor?
That's the floor.
Man, that's awfully Debbie Downer. So they're not even going to finish 500?
No, it's tough because again, look at their. All right,
if we're just talking about the floor, the games that they could potentially lose, I think they could lose at Miami. They could lose to the Jaguars. They could lose to Houston,
Baltimore.
They're going to split with the Jets. They could go to Indy and lose. They could go to Kansas City. Kansas City could come there. They could lose that game. They could lose to San Francisco. They could go out to SoFi Stadium and lose to the Rams, and then they could lose to the Detroit Lions potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oof.
10.
So 7 and 10. I'm gonna go 7 and 10 as my floor. Now that I've done the math and calculated it, the floor is 7 and 10. I think there's a real possibility.
I say, and me saying 8 wins is not that far off. Like, if they go 7 and 10, 8, 9. Sean McDermott, you're gone, dude.
Yeah, I mean they for sure will be a playoff team at 8 and 9 or 7 and 10.
Because all right, and when we do these when we do these hypotheticals, unless you're already entered and we know you're not going to be there, like in Miami, like we know Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips, they're not going to be there by week 2, right? You can like that. You need a pass rush like that to slow down a guy like Josh Allen. Like I'm like
100%, right? 100%.
Right. So, but other than that, like outside of the players that we know for a fact that they're injured, they're not going to be there, and all these other hypotheticals, everybody else is healthy. So when you play the Jags, Trevor Lawrence's ankle or whatever is not banged up. He's 100%. Aaron Rodgers is 100%. Everybody's healthy. Everybody healthy. No injuries whatsoever. 8 wins. I can't wait for that game in Houston. I really want to see what happens with that.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
I think wait for that. On the other side of the coin, right? So let's talk about the ceiling. So in my opinion, I think that their ceiling is 3 losses. I think they're 14-3. I got them losing those 3 games in a row: Baltimore, Houston, and the Jets. I think that because they get buys before San Francisco and right after Kansas City, both those games at home, I think they win both of those games. And I think they sweep Miami because, as you mentioned, at the game that's going to be in South Beach, they will not have their 2 best edge rushers, and you need to be able to put pressure on the quarterback. And I do not think Miami can go into Orchard Park and beat Buffalo. And I got them at 14-3 as their ceiling. Where I think they're actually going to last, I think is somewhere in between, like 12 and 11 wins.
That's what I was about to say. 12-5. For like, I don't. That's a tough 3-game stretch to start the season. Baltimore, all on the road. I might add. Baltimore, Houston, New York, Tennessee's probably not going to be a pushover. Seattle at home. That 12th man, that's a different breed. I just don't
think Seattle's going to be all that good this year.
I ain't saying all that. I'm just saying they're gonna be a tough out.
Yeah,
I'm just saying they're gonna be a tough out, and they will be a tough out. But Geno Smith came back down to earth a little bit last season. I understand, but you still got Kenneth Walker. You still got DK. You still got Tyler Lockett.
Yep.
That ain't nothing to be like, oh, I ain't got to worry about nobody. I'm like, all right, do that if you want to. When you play Seattle, you're gonna be picking each other up off the floor.
That's true.
I'm going 12-5 because again, this is why you have Josh Allen. Like this is probably like the toughest schedule I've seen Buffalo have in quite a while. And
I actually think the schedule isn't that difficult. Like, there's no Cincinnati on this schedule. They don't have to play.
There's not that difficult. There's a Baltimore, a Houston, a KC, a
Niners,
but
a
Rams,
I know,
but Detroit.
Like, I mean, since Cincinnati isn't on this schedule, I mean, I think.
Come on.
They don't have to play. They don't have to play the Chargers, or whatever you think about the Chargers, but maybe I'm overrating. I just think Buffalo's going to be excellent this season. I think Josh Allen's going to be another season we're talking about him as the MVP. So
I'm gonna go 12. If he goes 12-5, if he goes 12-5, and he goes for what's typical, Josh? What real quick? What did Josh Allen do last year? Like numbers wise,
4,300 yards passing. I almost said receiving. That would be crazy. 4,300 yards passing, 29 touchdowns, 18 interceptions. He also punched in 15 touchdowns on the ground.
Okay. So, all right, let's say this. Let's say that 40, like the passing yards are somewhere in the same ballpark. Let's give him 43. Let's give him 43,
okay.
43, 50 passing yards. He cuts down on interceptions. That interception number is cut down by, let's say. Yeah, I was gonna say that. Let's say he goes 35 touchdowns.
What's you saying? 35 and 10.
I was gonna say 8, 35 and 8. 35 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and then he gives you another 8 to 10 on the ground, and they go 12-5 because certain things you just can't really. They are out of your control. Like if you play the Chiefs and you go down and you get that go ahead score, but your defense can't stop Pat Mahomes. Hey, we didn't lose that game because of you, right? Like we ain't like if you put the team in field goal position and the kicker missed, we ain't lose because because of Josh Allen. We lost because the kicker missed the kick. But if he does that, if he does 43, 50, 35 touchdowns and 8 interceptions with another 8 to 10 on the ground, it's gonna be, and he goes 12-5 without Stephon Diggs and without Gabe Davis. Hey, man.
I mean, he may get that. He may get that MVP trophy. That's for sure. But thank you very much for joining us. This has been our Buffalo Bills season preview. So please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast as we are moving on to the NFC North. After this, we're going to do the Chicago Bears show a little bit early because we wanted Matt James to have the opportunity to be on that show. Keep an eye out for all that content. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. My name is David On Point Hupp, and right there is my co-host, Mr. T.J. Hopkins. And TJ, what do we do here at the Prime, my friend?
We bring the heat concern.
Yes, sir. And I will see you tomorrow for the Chicago Bears show, man. I cannot wait.
And I'm actually gonna sit down and watch SummerSlam this Saturday.
Man, I'll be out of town, so I don't know if I can watch SummerSlam this weekend. But I'm excited about SummerSlam. I think Damian Priest is gonna win.
I think Finn's gonna stab him in the back.
I think that could happen too, but I think Damian Priest is gonna win.
I think two things
because they got that pay-per-view in Berlin like a couple weeks after SummerSlam. I mean, Gunther could technically win the title there. And if Damian Priest has been incredible on his promo work. He's been awesome.
Yeah, I think two things. I think Finn costs Damian, and I think Dom costs Rhea that match.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Finn Balor might cost everybody all the titles. I mean, he might be in the cahoots with everyone.
Seriously.
But yeah, thank you very much for joining us here. We'll be back here tomorrow. You guys all have a good night and stay safe out there. Hopefully this humidity takes a break because it is killing me here in Fort Wayne.
See, the next 3 days are going to be brutal. So, yeah.
Well, have fun, brother. I'll talk to you later, man.
Yeah.